Hi. So, for sound quality, this is a little bit of a backslide because I am super tight on time today, and I just wanted to make sure that I came on and I read another section before I head out, and I very likely will not be reading while I'm away. So I just wanted to continue with the progress that we're making. Right now, we're up to page 126, and we're in the second hub, which relates to power, our relationship with power, individuality, authority, autonomy, like all of the things that are related to really individuality. And the individuality is like pretty, like noting that all of the all of the tenets of the third hub are tend to be incredibly loaded. And for some folks, I find that they aren't necessarily, but and that those are people that are a little bit further outside of my professional world. But for folks who are operating in like conventional professional environments, there's a lot of stuff here, and that's getting reconciled and also experienced. So I'm going to read this section for today. It's leaders, followers, and cults. And I'm going to dip in, and then if there's something to say, great. If not, we'll just call it good. So, a basic definition of leadership is the ability to take responsibility and make the best possible decisions for the greater good of the group. Leaders should be able to communicate their plan to the group so that everyone is aware of the bigger picture, helping folks to understand why contribution matters. Of course, when you make decisions, there will always be disgruntled people who don't get what they want, and leaders need to know how to manage the discomfort of being questioned and or disliked when this happens. A leader does their best to make a decision based on incomplete information. You will never know everything, which can turn risk aversion into paralysis and can result in avoidance of making important decisions. Responsibility is the primary indicator of leadership. Power is a cross to bear. The difficulty of shouldering the load contributes to the appeal. Okay, I'm going to reread that because I kind of bungled. So, responsibility is the primary indicator of leadership. Power is a cross to bear. The difficulty of shouldering the load contributes to the appeal of following gurus, teachers, and bosses who volunteer to do the heavy lifting on tough topics in exchange for unquestioning loyalty. Cult leaders broker an exchange of obedience and sacrifice from their followers. The result is an infantilized utopia in which followers are unburdened and relieved of the difficulties of responsibility. However, the challenging and rewarding work of managing the paradoxes and ambiguities in life cannot be outsourced. Eventually, all leaders placed on pedestals experience corrective falls that bring them back to their appropriate position as valuable human beings. Yeah, I mean, I actually think that now as I'm getting more into having party and I'm gonna be out in the real world, a real, this is something I'm actually facing, which is that we're really used to people being volunteering this for us, like volunteering to have done the thinking, volunteering to take the position of leader in aspects of our development, where really at the core, it's like we have teachers who inform us, but ultimately that we should be capable of making decisions and being prepared to manage the consequences, which is, it's stuff. But yeah, as I'm reading this, it's like evocative that this is like with this, it's like what's being called upon here is to really recognize that what the kind of like the temptation of following, like and understand it, instead of vilifying it is like, it really is. I mean, I've loved this notion. When I did Ashtanga yoga, Patabi Joyce, who had been like basically the founder of the system, there was a story somebody had told, because he'd passed by the time I'd like joined the yoga cult. And there was a story someone told that they said, you'd be practicing yoga with him, and then he'd like actually give you an adjustment to put you into a posture that you yourself did not think you were capable of achieving. And I just remember that notion of was so like it like was like so deeply appealing to me, this idea that there was somebody, or even like a system or a process, or that would be possible that there's somebody that could take me further. And this is like a little bit nuanced, but the thing is that, and then what I came to know after years in it was that he's injuring people all the time. Like people were having like injuries that they still carry with them, in terms of like, like when you think that you're like twisting somebody into a pretzel and they're like not certain. And the thing that would happen, so this was the thing that was like, wow, is that they'd be like, no, 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 no. And he'd be like, no, you're being bad because you're not understanding that I know how to get you there. And that just at the time, that notion was really tempting to me, because I just thought, whoa, that's really great, is that somebody can break you through your limitations. And um unfortunately, it's just not how it works. It's like there is something to be said for somebody who can encourage you to see this in yourself. But all the compliments, like all the stuff where you go, oh, you're great, you're fantastic, they do something to light a recognition inside of ourselves. Like there's something that sees that. But you can't hijack somebody's sense of self by pouring positive reinforcements into them. This is from the inside out. There's just I mean, honestly, like the only time that was actually going to work was in the earliest stages of our development. And those are over. And so now what we need to do is like the corrective course of finding this leadership within ourselves. So, yeah. And I say this like I'm saying this like kind of tersely, but ultimately I have a lot of compassion for it, as somebody who's always hoped that this could be possible. But and realize that it can't be. Like it comes. It's from it's living from the inside out. That's what we're always doing. Okay, so when our will has been broken or diminished, if we fear responsibility because of the potential for failure and embarrassment, and if we don't know how powerful we are, we won't know we're capable of facing challenges and being leaders in our own lives. You're more powerful than you've ever imagined possible. And when we reflect on the people who had lasting positive effects on our lives, they tend to have taught us about our unique inner capabilities and how to access them. I mean, this is one of the things, going back to this, it's really the people that help point us to them. They can't be given to us. The quote at the top of the chapter is the Alice Walker quote, which is, the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. So, back to the thing about like the people who influence us in this particular way. I mean, think about, I have this, like, I think of adults in my childhood, and I've like thought back to that often. I mean, I wonder if, like, take a moment and just think back to who were the people. Were there teachers? Were there like support people in your life, family, friends, community members, people in a like faith-based organization, maybe a grandparent? I mean, if parents weren't providing this kind of this level of like support and recognition and encouragement, remembering that, there oftentimes are people that were, and it helps kind of trace back to this sense of finding this in ourselves, is to realize that it was there and it was pointed out, and that is part of who you are, whether people said it or not. If people didn't, it's still true. So as leaders, we learn there's a spectrum between love and fear. Too much love and there will be a lack of respect. The team will feel that there are no consequences. This is like unconditional positive regard. And too much fear, and the team will resent you. Doing the bare minimum while investing most of its energy into serving individual interests. Leadership, like so many things, rides a line of balancing complementary opposites. A teacher, coach, or parent knows that sometimes your people will love you and sometimes they will hate you. And you need to comfortably occupy either state to gain leadership's powerful middle ground. And this is one of those things where, as a new leader, I remember I cared a lot about people liking me. And I was always afraid in my first years as a leader, I was always afraid everyone would leave. So it's like so I really poured it on in terms of being really permissive and accepting. And the thing is it would really slack the line because eventually folks would kind of consider that it's there's no consequence for lack of performance. And I mean it's a balance. So it's a bit of I guess maybe love might not have been the right word there, but maybe the notion of unconditional love, of being listen, it doesn't matter what you do. I know it sounds tough to say it out loud, but it's it's kind of a reality. Because I mean, one of the things, going back to leadership being the ability to make decisions that benefit the greater good for increasingly larger numbers of people, means also that being able to occupy folks having negative impressions. They're usually transient, but being able to weather that. Because if we see it, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it in leaders who can't manage people's dislike of them or receiving dissent, so they just are constantly shifting to appeal to whoever is kind of bearing the strongest kind of force at them. So as a result of that, everyone suffers. So yeah. Okay. So on a good team, there should be room for healthy dissent and for everyone to have the opportunity to feel heard. Chris Voss, the former FBI hostage negotiator and co-author with Tal Raz of Never Split the Difference, discusses the meaning of "you're right" versus "that's right." During hostage negotiations, Voss uncovered that when people say "you're right," they consent to end the conversation by using a superficial resolution that leaves the negotiator feeling good, but leaves the negotiation unresolved. When people say "that's right," it's evidence that they feel understood, and then the process can move forward. Superficial agreement never advances a process in the case of leaders and followers. Without the dynamic of active, authentic engagement, it's only a matter of time before the scales are corrected and folks find a way to be seen and heard through disruption, withdrawal, and departure. And I mean, I think one of the things is that I think once you become more experienced as a leader, the ability to kind of ride the waves and navigate that happens more intuitively. Like you start to be able to adjust. And even the thing about how leadership is part of a process of transformation is that it does change a person to be in a position, even as a parent, as a leader of people in an organization, as a leader of people in any type of grouping of folks, coaching, whatever. But coaching, I think one of the things about being a boss for people, specifically as it relates to their livelihood, is a very specific role. When you as their boss have either complete oversight or a very significant impact on someone's ability to feel safe in their livelihood, and not only the pursuit of the income that supports their ability to take care of themselves and their families, but also in just their psychological safety in the like where they spent their day. And without like our resolution. And one of the things I say with Parinama is that the target audience is people who are responsible for other people, is that what we're doing is through this process of evaluation, we really bring self-awareness so that we're not projecting ourselves onto the people who wind up suffering for our own like our own shortcomings. And I have so many cringeworthy stories in my evolution as a leader, and that's, I mean, where I've hurt people and I've hurt people from a position of being like, I felt really great about, I was like, I really got this, and I really didn't. But yeah, I mean, one of the things I used to do, and so I'm only going to tell a good story about myself for this. Sorry, the cringe ones. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the cringe ones are so tough because I still feel I've apologized to people too about it, like things I've said in a very kind of like flip way, thinking they were insightful, and maybe they were just a little too like wound up being kind of cutting or too personal. Um, a lot of things related to being like understanding of other people's positions that were different than mine, and my attempts to be really good when I was really bad. But I had a woman who worked for me when I was younger who reminded me a lot of my mother. And so I was like really activated by her. She's old. She was a bit, she's probably like 20 years older than me. And um and I just remember one of the things that I used to do. This is me like telling a good story, which is sort of, you know, tells you something. I'm not admitting to like any of my sins here. Um I'll take special requests if anybody asks. I'll kind of serve some up. But I remember I used to close the door to my office before I met with her, and I would really work to try to get out of my way. Like I'd really try to clear my mental space so that I could be really present with her instead of being really reactive. I didn't have like this is very early, it's like 15 getting on 20 years, 15, 16, 17 years. And so this is the beginning of some of the stuff that is sort of like incorporated in Parinama, but it's not exactly. But that whole thing about realizing the potential that what I was reacting to and how that could potentially cause harm to somebody who, is not a party to, and, whatever. But yeah, knows how I like avoided telling bad stories. And it's not that I can't find them. They're like all totally popping up in my head, like not all of them, but a lot of them. There's like some, yeah, I recently apologized to somebody. And what's funny is they said they couldn't remember. They said, I don't remember that happened. I was like, oh, that's kind of a bummer. I don't know if that's worse than carrying the kind of like, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway. So okay. Well, that's that on this for right now. I'm going to hop off, and I thank you so much for watching and being part of this. I am so grateful for you, and all comments. I answer anything that you put up, any questions, not aside from Mira, not a lot of takers on this yet. I hope that changes, and looking forward to continuing this. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you next time. All right. Bye.